Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. His hands gripped the railing as he stared at the alien structure that would change everything for humanity. Then, station was huge, maybe 50 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. Strange towers twisted up from its surface like metal trees, and bright lights moved along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "We're really doing this," said Dr. Lisa Bennett from beside him. The scientist had spent her whole career studying alien life, but she had never seen anything like this. Her voice was quiet, full of wonder and fear at the same time. Commander Ryan Phillips checked his tablet for the 100th time that day. As the cultural expert, he knew more about alien customs than anyone else on the ship. But knowing about something and actually experiencing it were very different things. "The Galactic Council has been watching us for decades," he said. "This is our chance to prove we belong out here." The Council controlled most of the galaxy. Humans had only recently learned they existed when alien scouts finally made contact with Earth. For years, humanity had wondered if they were alone among the stars. Now they knew the answer was no, and it was both exciting and terrifying. Jake turned to look at the most important member of their small group. Emma Carter sat in a chair near the back of the bridge, her legs swinging because her feet could not reach the floor. At 12 years old, she was the youngest person ever to visit an alien world. Her father was Ambassador Carter, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. Emma had begged to come on this trip, and her father finally agreed, because he thought it would show the aliens that humans valued their children and their future. Emma was not afraid like the adults. She pressed her face against the window and watched the alien station with bright, curious eyes. "Look at all those different ships," she said, pointing at the vessels docked around the station. "I wonder where they all come from." The alien ships were like nothing in human space. Some looked like giant crystals that somehow flew through space. Others were round and smooth, covered in what looked like living skin. A few ships were so strange that Jake could not even guess how they worked. Each one represents a different species, Dr. Bennett explained to Emma. "The Council has over 300 member races. We would be 301 if they accept us." That was a big if. The messages from the Council had been cold and formal. They agreed to meet with humans, but they made it clear that membership was not guaranteed. Some aliens thought humans were too young and primitive to join their ancient organization. The USS Liberty moved slowly toward the docking bay assigned to them. Jake watched alien traffic controllers guide their ship with beams of light. Everything was smooth and efficient, showing technology far beyond what humans possessed. It made him feel small and worried about whether they were ready for this. "Incoming. Message from the station," reported the communications officer. "They want to speak with Ambassador Carter." Emma's father appeared on the screen from his quarters. Ambassador Carter was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent months preparing for this moment, learning alien languages and customs. "Tell them we are honored by their invitation and ready to begin talks," he said. The docking process took another hour. Alien technology guided their ship into a bay that adjusted its size to fit the human vessel. Jake had never seen anything like it. The walls actually moved and changed shape, like they were alive. When the airlocks finally connected, a group of aliens waited for them. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects walking on two legs. Their leader had bright green skin and 4 arms. His voice came through a translation device that made it sound mechanical and cold. "Welcome to Council Station Harmony," the alien said. "I am Sub-Commander Kriktal. You will follow protocols at all times during your stay." The humans walked through corridors that were clearly not built for their species. The ceilings were too high in some places and too low in others. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet that Jake could not identify. Alien workers stopped to stare at them as they passed. Some looked curious, others seemed annoyed or disgusted. Emma walked between her father and Dr. Bennett, her eyes wide as she took in everything around her. She carried a small bag with her art supplies and a tablet computer loaded with games. Her father had told her this trip was important work, but to Emma, it felt like the greatest adventure of her life. They reached their quarters in the diplomatic section of the station. The rooms were plain and simple, with furniture that could adjust to fit different alien body types. Emma's room was next to her father's, connected by a door that could stay open so he could keep an eye on her. The formal talks begin tomorrow, Ambassador Carter told the group. Tonight, we rest and prepare. This is the most important moment in human history. Jake looked out the window of his room at the vast alien station around them. Thousands of different creatures lived and worked here, species that had traveled the stars for millions of years. Humanity was just taking its first steps into this larger universe. Emma unpacked her art supplies and set up her tablet. She wanted to draw pictures of everything she saw to show her friends back on Earth. The alien architecture was beautiful. In a strange way, all curves and angles that seemed to flow like water, frozen in time. As the artificial day cycle dimmed to simulate night, the human delegation tried to sleep. Tomorrow would bring the real test. The Galactic Council would decide if humanity deserved a place among the stars, or if they should return to their small corner of space and wait a few more centuries. None of them knew that some aliens had already made their decision about humans. In the deeper levels of the station, religious leaders and military commanders talked about the primitive species that dared to think they belonged in civilized space. They saw humanity's peaceful approach as weakness and their youth as ignorance. The stage was set for tragedy, though the humans could not see it coming. The morning brought new challenges for the human delegation. Ambassador Carter sat across from 3 alien council members in a room that felt more like a courtroom than a place for friendly talks. The aliens spoke in cold, formal voices through their translation devices. Every question sounded like an accusation. "Your species has barely left its home system," said Council Prime Zektar, a tall Zephyrian with dark blue skin. "What makes you think you are ready to join civilized space?" Ambassador Carter kept his voice calm and steady. "We believe diversity makes the galaxy stronger. Humanity offers fresh perspectives and new ideas." High Crystal Arch Vexun, a being made of living crystal, shifted in his chair with a sound like breaking glass. "Fresh perspectives often mean primitive mistakes. Your kind has much to learn before you can walk among the stars safely." The third council member, War Priest Kleitha, said nothing. He simply stared at the human ambassador with 4 black eyes that showed no emotion. His insect-like face was impossible to read, but Ambassador Carter felt the alien's dislike like a physical force. While the adults talked in circles, Emma Carter explored the diplomatic quarter with her tablet and art supplies. Her father had told her to stay in the safe areas, but the 12-year-old found the alien architecture fascinating. She wanted to draw the beautiful crystal formations that grew from the walls like frozen waterfalls. The corridor she followed led deeper into the station than she meant to go. The walls here were different, covered in symbols that glowed with soft blue light. Emma stopped to sketch the patterns, trying to capture how the light seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. She did not notice the warning signs, written in alien languages she could not read. She did not understand that she had wandered into the sacred quarter where only certain species were allowed. To Emma, it was just another beautiful part of the station to explore and draw. The chamber she entered took her breath away. Crystal spires reached up to a domed ceiling, covered in stars that moved in slow patterns. The floor was made of some kind of metal that reflected the light like a mirror. In the center stood an altar surrounded by floating geometric shapes that hummed with energy. Emma sat down on the smooth floor and opened her art tablet. This was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen, and she wanted to capture every detail. She started with the crystal spires, using her stylus to trace their elegant curves. The floating shapes were harder to draw because they kept moving, but she tried her best to show how they danced around the altar. She was so focused on her artwork that she did not hear the footsteps behind her until it was too late. Blasphemer. The voice hit her like a physical blow, full of rage and disgust. Emma spun around to see 3 Zephyrian priests standing in the entrance. Their leader, War Priest Clyctha, pointed one of his forearms at her like he was casting a curse. "I'm sorry," Emma said, scrambling to her feet. "I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be here. I was just drawing pictures." But her words only made the aliens angrier. "Contamination," hissed another priest. "The sacred chamber has been defiled by this primitive creature." Emma backed toward the altar, her tablet still clutched in her hands. "Please, I didn't mean any harm. Look, I was just drawing how beautiful everything is." She held up her tablet to show them her artwork, hoping they would understand she meant no disrespect. The priests recoiled like she had shown them something horrible. To them, her artistic representation was mockery of their most sacred beliefs. The images on her tablet were crude copies of holy symbols that only the blessed were allowed to see. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison and Dr. Bennett searched frantically through the diplomatic quarter. Emma had been gone for over an hour, and her father was starting to panic. They checked every room and corridor they were allowed to enter, but found no trace of the missing girl. "She has to be somewhere," Dr. Bennett said, though her voice showed her growing fear. "Emma is smart. She wouldn't go somewhere dangerous on purpose." Commander Phillips tried to contact station security, but the aliens seemed strangely unhelpful. "They say they are investigating," he reported, "but they won't let us help with the search." In the sacred chamber, War Priest Clyctha spoke into a communication device. His words were in the old Zephyrian language, but their meaning was clear to his fellow priests. He was asking for permission to cleanse the contamination. Emma listened to the alien voices, getting more excited and angry. She did not understand their words, but she could feel the hate coming from them, like heat from a fire. "I want to go back to my father," she said in a small voice. "Can you please show me the way?" The response came not in words, but in action. One of the priests activated a force field that surrounded Emma with crackling energy. She was trapped in a cage of light that burned when she tried to touch it. Council. Prime Zektar's voice came through the communication system. The human delegation could hear him speaking to someone, but they could not understand the alien language. Dr. Bennett recognized some of the words from her studies, but the meaning escaped her. In the council chamber, the alien leaders made their decision. They saw Emma's innocent wandering as a perfect example of human carelessness and disrespect. Rather than simply removing her from the sacred area, they chose to make an example that would teach all species about the consequences of defiling Zephyrian holy places. "The contamination must be cleansed," War Priest Clyctha announced. "The old laws demand purification." Ambassador Carter burst into the council chamber just as the decision was made final. "Where is my daughter?" he demanded, his diplomatic training forgotten in his fear for Emma. "She has violated our most sacred space," Zektar replied coldly. "Justice will be served according to our ancient traditions." "She's just a child," Ambassador Carter shouted. "She didn't know. Please, let me explain to her what she did wrong. Let me take her back to our quarters." But the council members were already leaving. Security forces blocked the human delegation from following, claiming they needed to preserve evidence of the violation. In the sacred chamber, Emma sat on the floor inside her energy cage, tears running down her face. She tried to call her father on her tablet, but the signal was being blocked. All she could do was wait and hope that someone would come to help her. The priests prepared their cleansing ritual, gathering ancient tools that had not been used in centuries. They chanted prayers in voices that sounded like insects, clicking their mandibles together. The sound filled Emma with terror, even though she could not understand the words. Time was running out, and the human delegation could do nothing but pound on sealed doors and demand answers that would not come. The quantum communication reached Earth 18 hours after Emma Carter died. Ambassador Carter sat alone in his quarters, staring at the wall where his daughter had drawn a picture of their family just days before. His hands shook as he recorded the message that would change everything. "Emma is gone," he whispered into the recorder. "They killed her for entering a room she didn't know was forbidden. My little girl is dead because she wanted to draw pretty pictures." President Helen Martinez received the message in the middle of a cabinet meeting. She read it twice before the words truly sank in. Then she stood up so fast that her chair fell. "Over. Clear the room," she said in a voice that made everyone move quickly. "Get me Admiral Sullivan and General Hayes, now." Within an hour, the most powerful people on Earth gathered in the deep bunkers beneath the Capitol. The Global Defense Council had not met in full session for 20 years, not since the alien first contact protocols were established. Now they sat around a table made of steel from the first human starship, their faces grim in the blue light of holographic displays. Admiral Frank Sullivan commanded Earth's visible fleet, the ships that alien scouts had observed during their visits to human space. These vessels were impressive by human standards, but primitive compared to what the galaxy possessed. At least, that was what everyone was supposed to think. "How many ships can we deploy immediately?" President Martinez asked. 43 vessels from the home fleet," Admiral Sullivan replied. "Another 60 from the outer colonies." "But, Mom, against the entire Galactic Council, those numbers mean nothing." General Patricia Hayes, head of Strategic Command, cleared her throat. She was a small woman with gray hair and steel eyes that had seen too many wars. "Ma'am, perhaps it's time to discuss options that were previously classified above your level." The president looked surprised. "Above my level? I'm the commander-in-chief." "Yes, ma'am. But some projects were started before you took office. Before contact with the aliens. Programs that continued in secret even after we learned we weren't alone." General Hayes touched her tablet, and new displays appeared in the room. "Dr. Webb, please brief the president on Project Deep Archive." Dr. Marcus Webb was a thin man who looked like he spent most of his time in laboratories, which was exactly true. He stood up slowly, as if the weight of secrets was physically heavy on his shoulders. "Ma'am, when we first detected alien signals 40 years ago, a small group of scientists and military leaders made a decision. We would prepare for the possibility that first contact might not go well. The holographic displays showed star charts of the outer solar system, beyond Neptune, where human colonies were few and far between. Red dots marked locations that were not on any public record. We've been finding alien wreckage in our system for decades," Dr. Webb continued. "Ships that crashed on asteroids, probe debris in the Oort cloud, even a complete scout vessel buried in ice on Pluto. We reverse-engineered everything we could." President Martinez stared at the displays. "You built ships using alien technology?" "Not just ships, Mom. A whole fleet. Hidden facilities. Weapons that exist nowhere else in known space." Dr. Webb's voice grew stronger as he spoke. "We called it the Ancient Fleet because the crews who volunteered to serve on it accepted that they might never come home. They've been out there for 20 years, waiting." Admiral Sullivan looked shocked. "How is this possible?" I command Earth's space forces. You command the forces we wanted the aliens to see, General Hayes said gently. The ancient fleet answers to a different chain of command, one that was activated the moment Emma Carter died. Another woman entered the room, wearing a uniform that none of them recognized. She was tall and lean, with short black hair and scars on her hands that spoke of years working with dangerous technology. Her eyes were the cold blue of deep space. Admiral Kate Thompson reporting for duty, ma'am, she said to the president. I've spent the last 20 years in the dark, between stars, preparing for this day. Admiral Sullivan found his voice. I've never heard of you. That was the point. Admiral Thompson moved to the holographic display and touched it with practiced ease. The star chart changed to show positions throughout the solar system. The ancient fleet consists of 87 vessels, built using hybrid human-alien technology. We've been studying Galactic Council military tactics for 2 decades. President Martinez studied the face of this woman who had lived in secret to protect Earth. What can you do? We can make them pay for killing our child, Admiral Thompson said simply. Our ships use stealth systems they've never seen. Our weapons combine human creativity with alien power sources. Most importantly, we know how they think because we've been watching them longer than they've been watching us. Dr. Webb activated another display. Every alien ship that visited our system was secretly scanned. Every diplomatic message was analyzed for intelligence value. We know their fleet positions, their supply lines, their political weaknesses. How many people know about this? The president asked. Maybe 2,000 total, General Hayes replied. Scientists, engineers, and the crews who volunteered for permanent exile. They've been living on hidden bases in the Oort cloud, training for the day we might need them. Admiral Thompson stepped forward. Ma'am, we've identified 17 high-value targets throughout Council space. Military installations, supply depots, and command centers. We can strike them all simultaneously before they know we're coming. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed what they were hearing. Earth had a secret fleet that had been preparing for war while diplomats spoke of peace. It sounded impossible, but the evidence was right in front of them. What about the crews? President Martinez asked. People who've been in exile for 20 years? They volunteered knowing they might die out there, Admiral Thompson said. But when they learned what happened to Emma Carter, they sent a single message. It said, "Give us our orders." Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker appeared on the communication screen from the flagship deep in space. Admiral Thompson, the fleet is ready. We're just waiting for the word. President Martinez looked around the room at faces that had suddenly become harder, more determined. The death of one innocent child had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping since their ancestors first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. They wanted to make an example of us, she said finally. They killed a child to show the galaxy that humans don't belong among the stars. She turned to Admiral Thompson. Show them what happens when predators hunt our young. Admiral Thompson smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Yes, Mom? Earth's fury is about to be unleashed. The ancient fleet moved through space like ghosts returning from the dead. Admiral Kate Thompson stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, watching her ships emerge from hiding places they had occupied for 20 years. Each vessel was a hybrid creation, built with human engineering and alien technology that the Galactic Council had never seen working together. Fleet status report, she ordered. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker checked his screens. All 87. Ships are operational, Admiral. Stealth systems are active, and we're invisible to their sensors. The crews are ready. Navigation Chief Amy Rodriguez plotted their course through space. The alien navigation systems they had reverse-engineered allowed them to move through, jump space without creating the energy signatures that normal ships produced. They could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Target analysis complete, reported Captain Lisa Morgan from the stealth destroyer USS Vengeance. Her ship was one of the smaller vessels in the fleet, but it carried weapons that could punch holes through alien battlecruisers. We have confirmed locations on all 17 primary targets. The ancient fleet had been planning this operation for years. Every ship the aliens sent to human space had been secretly scanned and studied. Every piece of technology was analyzed and copied. While Earth's diplomats spoke of peace and cooperation, the hidden fleet had been preparing for war. Commander Dan Foster commanded the heavy cruiser USS Justice, the largest ship in the fleet after the flagship. His vessel carried the most experimental weapons, devices that existed nowhere else in known space. Quantum disruptors are charged and ready. He reported, reality anchors are in position. Admiral Thompson nodded. The quantum disruptors were human inventions that used alien power sources to tear holes in space itself. The reality anchors were even more dangerous, weapons that could stop enemy ships from using their faster-than-light drives. Once caught by a reality anchor, alien vessels would be trapped in normal space where human ships could destroy them easily. Admiral, we're receiving intelligence updates from our agents, said Colonel Nancy Brooks. She coordinated with human operatives throughout Council space, people who had been living as ordinary traders and researchers. While secretly gathering information for Earth. For 20 years, humans had been quietly spreading through the galaxy. They posed as simple merchants selling basic goods, or scientists studying alien cultures. The Galactic Council thought they were harmless primitives trying to learn from their betters. In reality, they were spies mapping every important installation and military base. War Priest Kleichthal has returned to the Zephyrian homeworld, Colonel Brooks reported. He's celebrating what he calls his victory over human blasphemy. The planet's defenses are at normal levels. Admiral Thompson's face showed no emotion, but her hands gripped the railing tighter. The alien who had killed Emma Carter thought he was safe on his homeworld, surrounded by his own kind. He was about to learn how wrong he was. All ships, this is Admiral Thompson, she said over the fleet communication system. Today we prove that humanity protects its children, no matter the cost. The galaxy will remember this day as the moment they learned not to hunt our young. The USS Retribution led the way toward Kethvar, the Zephyrian homeworld. Behind it followed ships with names like USS Vengeance, USS Justice, USS Fury, and USS Nemesis. Each name told the story of what humanity felt about Emma Carter's death. The journey through jump space took 6 hours. Human crews who had trained in the darkness of the Oort cloud made final preparations for combat. They checked weapons that combined human creativity with alien power. They tested stealth systems that made their ships invisible to enemy sensors. They prepared to show the galaxy what happened when someone killed a human child. Captain Rachel Stone commanded the assault carrier USS Fury, which carried smaller attack ships designed to hit multiple targets at once. Fighter squadrons are ready for deployment, she reported. Each pilot has memorized their target assignments. The fighter pilots were volunteers who had spent 20 years practicing combat maneuvers in empty space. They flew ships that used alien technology in ways the original builders never intended. Human engineers had taken peaceful exploration vessels and turned them into weapons of war. Approaching target zone, announced Navigation Chief Rodriguez, dropping out of jump space in 30 seconds. Admiral Thompson opened a communication channel that would reach every inhabited world in the galaxy. The message would go to the Galactic Council, to every member species, and to every human living among the stars. This is Admiral Kate Thompson of the Earth Ancient Fleet, she said in a voice as cold as vacuum. You killed our child. Now you face our wrath We are humanity, and we do not forgive. The first ships dropped out of jump space about 17 different worlds simultaneously. Alien defense systems tried to detect the incoming threat, but their sensors found nothing. The human stealth technology made their vessels appear to be empty space dot at the Zephyrian homeworld. Admiral Thompson's flagship materialized directly above the planet's capital city. Around it appeared the other ships of her battle group, emerging from jump space like avenging angels coming to deliver justice. War-priest. Clyktha was in his temple when the alarm started screaming. He looked up at the sky through the crystal dome and saw ships that should not exist. The primitive humans were supposed to have weak technology and no military power. Yet here they were, appearing from nowhere above his sacred world. Impossible. He hissed in his native language. The council said they were defenseless. The Zephyrian defense fleet scrambled to respond. Their ships were fast and well armed by galactic standards. But when they tried to target the human vessels, their weapons could not lock on. The enemy ships seemed to flicker in and out of existence. There one moment and gone the next. Captain Morgan led the first attack run in the USS Vengeance. Her ship dove toward the planet's orbital defense platforms like a striking snake. The quantum disruptors fired, and entire sections of the alien structures simply ceased to exist. Torn apart at the molecular level. Commander Foster's heavy cruiser took on the Zephyrian battle fleet. The USS Justice moved with impossible grace, its hybrid drive systems allowing maneuvers that violated everything the aliens knew about space combat. When it fired its main guns, enemy ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Target the military installations only, Admiral Thompson ordered. We are here for justice, not genocide. The human ships struck with surgical precision. They destroyed weapons factories and military bases while leaving civilian areas untouched. This was not random destruction, but carefully planned vengeance against those who had wronged humanity. On the surface of Kethfair, War-priest Clyktha watched his world's defenses crumble. The same energy weapons that had killed Emma Carter now rained from the sky, turning his sacred temples into molten ruin. The aliens who had thought humans were weak primitives now faced the terrible truth of what humanity could become when pushed too far. The attack began at exactly the same moment across 17 different star systems. Human ships appeared from jump space like deadly flowers blooming in the darkness, their weapons already charging as they materialized above unsuspecting alien worlds. Admiral Thompson watched the tactical display on the USS Retribution as reports came in from every strike team. Red dots marked successful hits on military targets, while blue indicators showed the positions of her scattered fleet. Everything was going according to plan. Direct hit on the Vorthan crystal forges, reported Captain Pete Jackson from the battleship USS Nemesis. His ship had struck the crystalline aliens' main weapons manufacturing facility, turning their beautiful crystal factories into glowing debris. Secondary explosions are taking out their entire industrial complex. At the same time, Captain Lisa Morgan dove her destroyer through the orbital defenses of a Zephyrian military base. The USS Vengeance moved like a hunting bird, striking fast and hard before disappearing back into the darkness. Enemy weapons could not lock onto her ship because the stealth systems made it invisible to their targeting computers. Their sensor technology is useless against us, she reported with satisfaction. They're firing blind and missing every shot. The Zephyrian defense fleet tried to organize a counterattack, but they faced an enemy unlike anything in their military manuals. Human ships appeared and disappeared without warning, striking from impossible angles before vanishing again. It was like fighting ghosts that could kill. War-priest Clyktha stood in the ruins of his temple, watching the sky burn with the light of dying ships. His own vessels were being destroyed, one by an enemy he could barely see. The humans He had dismissed as primitive savages were tearing apart his world's defenses with surgical precision. How is this possible? He demanded of his military commanders. The council said they had no real weapons. General Vector, commander of the Planetary Defense Forces, could only shake his head in confusion. Their technology is unlike anything we've encountered. Our weapons cannot target them, but theirs can destroy us with ease. Above the planet, Commander Dan Foster led the USS Justice in a devastating attack on the main orbital shipyard. The heavy cruiser's quantum disruptors fired in sequence, each shot tearing massive holes in the alien construction facility. Within minutes, 20 years of shipbuilding work was reduced to floating scrap metal. Target destroyed, Foster reported, moving to secondary objectives. The human assault was not random destruction, but carefully planned justice. Every target had been chosen for its military value or its connection to the persecution of humans. In council space, they struck weapons factories, military bases, and government facilities while leaving civilian areas completely untouched. On the Galactic Council's home station, emergency meetings were called as reports of the human attacks flooded in. Council Prime Zektar paced back and forth in the command center, his forearms gesturing wildly as he tried to understand what was happening. 17 simultaneous attacks, he said to High Crystal Arch Vixon. How did they coordinate strikes? Across such distances? Our intelligence said they barely had faster-than-light travel. The crystalline alien's voice sounded like breaking glass when he spoke. Perhaps our intelligence was wrong. These humans have been deceiving us from the beginning. Admiral Pete Jackson commanded the second wave of attacks from his position near the Council's main military depot. The USS Nemesis hung in space like a predator studying its prey, while smaller ships darted in to strike specific targets. Communication. Networks are down across 3 sectors, reported his tactical officer. Their military command structure is falling apart. Captain Rachel Stone launched fighter squadrons from the USS Fury, sending dozens of small attack craft toward enemy supply convoys. A human pilots had trained for 20 years in the empty spaces between stars, perfecting tactics that no alien military had ever seen. All fighters, this is Stone, she broadcast to her pilots. Remember, we're here for the ones who hurt our people. Make every shot count. The fighters moved through space in formations that seemed to dance around enemy weapons fire. They used the same stealth technology as the larger ships, appearing just long enough to fire their weapons before disappearing again. Alien pilots found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see until it was too late. Back on Kethvar, War Priest, Klektha received a direct communication from one of the human ships. Admiral Thompson's face appeared on his screen, her expression cold and determined. You killed an innocent child, she said in perfect Zephyrian language. You celebrated her death as a victory. Now you will learn the price of hunting humanities. Young, Klektha tried to respond, but the communication cut off before he could speak. Moments later, energy beams from orbit struck the temple complex where Emma Carter had died. The building where the alien priests had performed their cleansing ritual was turned into molten slag in seconds. The priest watched his life's work burn and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear, real, bone-deep terror of an enemy that had seemed so weak and helpless just days ago. Across the galaxy, other alien leaders were having similar realizations. The humans they had dismissed as primitive newcomers possessed technology and military skill that surpassed their own. Ships that should not exist were destroying their defenses with weapons that violated everything they knew about physics. How long have they been preparing for this? Asked General Mordak of the Hegemony Fleet as he watched human ships tear through his orbital fortresses. How did we miss such a massive military buildup? The answer was becoming clear to those who survived. the initial attacks. Humanity had been planning this for decades, hiding their true capabilities while posing as harmless explorers. Every diplomatic mission had been a scouting operation. Every trade ship had been gathering intelligence. Every cultural exchange had been preparation for war. Colonel Nancy Brooks coordinated the intelligence network from her position aboard the USS Retribution. Human agents throughout Council space were providing real-time updates on enemy movements and weaknesses. "The Hegemony Third Fleet is moving to intercept our forces at Rigel," she reported. "But our people, there are ready for them." Admiral Thompson nodded. They had known this moment would come when the aliens tried to organize a coordinated response. But by then, it would be too late. The first wave of attacks had crippled their command structure and destroyed their ability to communicate effectively. "All ships, prepare for Phase 2, she ordered. "Time to show them that humanity's patience has limits." The galaxy was learning a lesson that would reshape interstellar politics forever. The species that seemed so peaceful and naive possessed a capacity for organized violence that their enemies could barely comprehend. They had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping since their ancestors first learned to make weapons from stone and fire. War Priest Clyktha and his fellow aliens had wanted to make an example of the humans. Instead, they had created a demonstration of why predators should never hunt the young of a species that remembered how to fight back. 3 weeks after the first human attack, the Galactic Council's military forces were broken. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, looking down at the Council's home station through the main view screen. The same chamber where Emma Carter had died now hosted the complete surrender of galactic leadership. The alien fleets that had once controlled hundreds of star systems now floated in space as burning wreckage. Those ships that survived had surrendered. Rather than face destruction by human weapons they could not understand or fight against. The mighty Galactic Council, rulers of the galaxy for thousands of years, had been brought to their knees in less than a month. Final casualty reports. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker, "enemy military losses are at 93%. Our losses are 0 ships destroyed, minimal damage to 12 vessels." Admiral Thompson nodded, but felt no satisfaction in the numbers. This had never been about conquest or glory. It was about justice for a child who had died far from home, killed for the crime of being curious and innocent. High Crystal Arch Vexen appeared on the communication screen, his crystal body dim and cracked from stress. "Admiral Thompson, the Vorthan Empire requests terms for surrender. We offer tribute and territory in exchange for mercy." "Your empire participated in the execution of Emma Carter," Thompson replied coldly. "You will receive the same mercy you showed her." But before Vexen could respond, another voice cut into the transmission. President Helen Martinez spoke from the diplomatic vessel USS Emma Carter, which had just arrived from Earth. The ship had been renamed in honor of the fallen child, and it carried the most important passenger in human space. "This is President Martinez," she said. "I am here to discuss the future of this galaxy." Admiral Thompson saluted her commander-in-chief. "Ma'am, the ancient fleet has completed its mission. Enemy military resistance has ended." The president's face was hard as stone as she looked at the alien leaders on the screen. "You wanted to make an example of humanity. You killed a 12-year-old girl to show the galaxy that we didn't belong among the stars. You succeeded in teaching a lesson, just not the one you intended." Council Prime Zektar appeared alongside the other alien leaders, his proud bearing replaced by obvious fear. "President Martinez, we are prepared to negotiate new treaties. Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution to this conflict." "Peaceful?" President Martinez laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You had your chance for peace when my daughter asked for directions back to her father. You chose execution instead." Dr. Lisa Bennett, now wearing the uniform of Earth's first Galactic Administrator, stepped forward to address the aliens. She had been on the original diplomatic mission and had watched helplessly as Emma was taken away to die. Now she spoke for all of humanity. "The galaxy will operate under new rules," she announced. "Human oversight will ensure that no child of any species suffers the fate that Emma Carter did. We call it Emma's Law, and it will be enforced throughout known space." The new treaties were not negotiations, but dictates. Species that had participated in Emma's execution faced severe restrictions on their military forces and government authority. The Zephyrians lost their right to self-governance entirely, becoming a protectorate under direct human administration. Warpriest Clytha was brought before a human tribunal aboard the USS Justice. The alien who had ordered Emma's death stood in chains, facing judges who had no mercy left in their hearts. "You killed an innocent child," said Judge Patricia Hayes, formerly General Hayes of Earth's Strategic Command. "Your own laws demanded her death for entering a room she didn't know was forbidden. Our laws demand justice for the murder of our." Young Clytha tried to defend his actions. "It was our ancient tradition. The laws of my people required cleansing of the contamination." "Your people's laws no longer matter," Judge Hayes replied. "You are subject to human justice now." The priest and his fellow zealots were sentenced to life imprisonment in human facilities, where they would spend their remaining years learning why species that valued children were stronger than those that killed them for ancient superstitions. Other alien leaders who had protested Emma's execution received better treatment. The Altarian Federation, which had argued against the death penalty, was granted favorable trading status and defensive agreements with Earth. They learned that humanity remembered both its enemies and its friends. Admiral Thompson visited Emma's memorial on Earth 6 months after the war ended. The memorial was a beautiful garden where children from every human world could come to play safely. Ambassador Carter, Emma's father, tended the flowers there every day. He had never returned to diplomatic service, choosing instead to care for the living monument to his daughter. "She would have loved this place," he said to Thompson as they watched children laugh and run among the flower beds. "Emma always wanted to see gardens from other worlds." "She did see them," Thompson replied quietly. "And because of her, children throughout the galaxy are safer now." The ancient fleet remained active even after the fighting ended. Human warships patrolled trade routes and monitored former council worlds, a visible reminder that humanity's patience had limits. The galaxy had learned to fear the species that seemed so peaceful, for their greatest strength was not their kindness, but their terrible capacity for justice when that kindness was betrayed. Captain Lisa Morgan commanded one of the patrol squadrons, her destroyer USS Vengeance making regular visits to worlds that had once scorned human requests for membership. Now those same worlds begged for human protection and trade agreements. "Status report from Sector 7, she transmitted to Fleet Command. "All former Council worlds are complying with the new regulations. No violations of Emma's Law detected." The law that bore the dead child's name had become the foundation of interstellar relations. No child of any species could be harmed for religious or cultural reasons. Those who violated this law faced the full wrath of humanity's military might. Dr. Bennett worked with reformed council members to establish new protocols for protecting young beings throughout known space. Her office received reports from thousands of worlds, each one documenting how local governments were adapting to the new reality of human oversight. Emma's death changed everything, she told her staff during a morning briefing. The galaxy learned that some lines should never be crossed. Admiral Thompson stood in her quarters aboard the USS Retribution, looking out at the stars that humanity now protected. The galaxy was larger and more complex than Emma Carter had ever imagined, but it was also safer because of her sacrifice. They wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy, Thompson said to the picture of Emma on her desk. Instead, they learned that our place is wherever our children need protection. The galaxy remembered the day 12-year-old Emma Carter died for the crime of curiosity. It also remembered the day humanity proved that some species should never be underestimated, especially when they were protecting their young from those who would do them harm.